And we're live. There we are, folks. Hello. Just popping in. There's 10 o'clock dead along. We're just trying to get ourselves just organised and adjusted a wee bit. Let's sort our camera out a wee bit, I think. We can. That's not too bad, is it? I've got Gym Book Club right above my head. Okay, so hi everybody. Thanks for joining me. If anybody's out there, say hello. Welcome to Doc Sloan's Science Fiction Station, and tonight it's chapter 32 of our Dune book club. And let's see. So this is sort of one of three continuous, I suppose, chapters within the book. And in particular, I suppose this is the chapter where we're at the Cave of the Ridges. We're going to learn an awful lot about the Fremen here. And also, I suppose, about Jessica and the Bene Gesserit motivations, etc. And again, it's a chapter that really, as much as we kind of have a split with Paul and Jessica, in the previous chapter, I suppose, Paul with Chani doubled up, if you like, but Jessica's action really focuses with Stilgar. It's the same again in this chapter. It's really a scene that features Stilgar and Jessica very heavily. Excuse me. And we get a little bit of a switch at the end where we switch over to Paul's point of view, following, I suppose, his ingestion of some Fremen food and how it begins to affect him. So quite a lot to learn in this chapter. My book's starting to literally fall apart here. And I've got a seam opened at the next chapter, chapter 33. And I suppose it's not too busy a chapter. It's dialogue heavy. There's a fair bit of chatting and there's a fair bit of thoughts emerging and thinking, if you like, from our characters. But we do learn quite a fair bit about the Fremen and I suppose how they operate as a tribal people, if you like. But in particular, we're going to learn a bit about the concept of leadership, at least from the Fremen point of view, especially from Stilgar. And we're going to see a little bit of diplomacy here as well. So it's a really interesting chapter. And I suppose these kind of, the chapter previously, this one, and the following chapter kind of run hand in hand, which is not something that happens very often in Dune. There's Brad Rose, and there's Cynthia saying, good evening, Doc. Brad Rose saying, good morning, Doc. And Chris Gibson saying, evening all. Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. Nice to have you all here. I hope you're all keeping well. So yeah, it's I don't know about you guys, but this is a really good chapter. I quite like this one. And I suppose it develops what we already know a bit about Jessica. We get to see the subtleties of her ways. And so we get to see a wee bit of Fremen behavior that's a bit so, and we've been sowing the seeds, I suppose, for the development ultimately of the confrontation that's going to come in the next chapter between Jamis and Paul. So a few different things in this chapter. And yeah, it's quite a good one, I think. And we're also going to have I think a couple of mysteries solved within this chapter as well. So as always, we have our epigraph. The Fremen were supreme in that quality the ancients called spanningsbogen, which is the self-imposed delay between desire for a thing and the act of reaching out to grasp a thing. From the wisdom of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. So I think we've had a wee chat about spanningsbogen before. It's a German phrase that means the span of the bow, if you like. And I think we talked about it actually has a whole pile of different meanings and inferences even within the German language. But where bow can mean many things, but it can also be like an arch, for example, in architecture. So yeah, it's an interesting term. But within Dune, I suppose it's that delay that we talked about. That when you see something you desire, it's the thing that makes you go, "Whoa, just hang on a second." That almost is that too good to be true sort of thought that makes you hesitate before picking something up, if you like, that's just too good to be true. That's the way I would look at it. So the self-imposed delay. I think there's going to be interesting points within this chapter where certain characters could act or speak, but they wait, and I think that sort of patience, if you like, that comes through in this chapter, and it leads ultimately to, I think, some quite interesting diplomacy between Jessica and Stilgar. Right. So let's have a wee look. So the time frame in the previous chapter, where they were told that the Fremen were hoping to arrive at the Cave of the Ridges before dawn. And as we begin, we're told that they're approaching this cave at dawnbreak. They're moving through a split in the basin wall that's so narrow that you have to turn sideways to pass through it. From Jessica's point of view, she can see Stilgar detach guards in the thin dawnlight and see these guys run up a cliff, basically. And we're told that Paul turns his head upward as he walked, seeing the tapestry of this planet cut in cross-section with a narrow cleft gaped towards grey-blue sky. So we're getting a little bit of, I suppose, setting just as we arrive at the Cave of the Ridges. And I suppose this gazing about him gets a sort of response from Chani, who pulls at his robe to tell him to hurry up, basically. She says, quickly, it is already light. So they are late, is what I've put here. And that there's a sense of urgency from the Fremen as we move here at the start of this chapter. Speed is essential, I think, here. And as we understand how things work on Arrakis for the Fremen, they, I suppose, make camp at night, and make camp during the day, and they travel at night. So to be seen out in the open during the daytime is not good. Of course, Paul whispers to her, the men who climbed above us, where are they going? The first day watch, she said. Hurry now. And so again, that sense of urgency. And we get some of Paul's thoughts at this point. So a guard's left outside, Paul thought. Wise. But it would have been wiser still for us to approach this place in separate bands. Less chance of losing the whole troop. He paused in the thought, realizing that this was guerrilla thinking, and he remembered his father's fear that the Atreides might become a guerrilla house. So, as we recall, there was a point previously in the book where I believe Leto Atreides wanted, to increase the emphasis on guerrilla tactics and training for Paul. I suppose lest this sort of thing happened, and here we find him thinking like this. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, I suppose. So again, for the third time, I suppose, let's see, faster, faster, Chani whispered. And again, urgency and caution is what we're getting here. So Paul speeds his steps up, and he hears the swishes of robes behind him. And at this point, he thinks of the words, we're told, of the Sirat from Dr. Yui's tiny orange Catholic Bible. Paradise on my right, hell on my left, and the angel of death behind. And he rolled the quotation in his mind, we're told. So, just within the context of this, I've done a wee bit of work. As-Sirat is the bridge that all must pass on the day of, if I'm pronouncing this right, I hope I am, Yom al-Qiyamah, which is the day of resurrection. And let me see, in order to enter paradise, below this is Jahannam, which is, I suppose, is that the Islamic hell? This is apparently not in the Quran, but is in the Hadith, and I've got this information from Wikipedia. So in other words, I suppose paradise on my right, hell on my left, and the angel of death behind me. The As-Sirat, in this sense, is like a very narrow bridge, I suppose, and if you have to cross it to get into paradise, and if underneath it, if you fall, is hell, basically. So it's this delicate balance, paradise on my right, hell on my left, the angel of death behind me. I've got a wee note here, by the way, from Caladin Bahildon's website, that this is also found in Zoroastrianism as well. There we go. So that's interesting. If anybody wants to check out his website, it's pretty good. I've used it in the past, and I pretty much keep a wee bookmark. So I check out dictionaries and so on, but his website's Arabic and Islamic themes and Frank Herbert's Dune. And it's pretty much all contained on one page. Very, very, very good. So there we go. So a little religious quotation from Paul, suggesting that there's a delicate balance to walk here. So we get a bit of scene again. They go around a corner with the passage widened. Stilgar stands at one side, motioning them into a hole that opened, we're told, at right angles. So like secret entrances, this kind of thing. Quickly, again, speed. Quickly, he hissed. We're like rabbits in a cage if a patrol catches us here. So you really do get the sense of urgency from the Fremen here, that and possibly that they're a little bit they've been delayed. They shouldn't be out this, and they're feeling it. I think that's the way I got the sense of it. Normally, I think it's the encountering Paul and Jessica that has slowed them up a bit. So like rabbits in a cage if a patrol catches us here. So Paul follows Chani through the opening into a cave that's illuminated by thin grey light from somewhere ahead. And Chani says you can stand up. So again, from Paul's point of view, he stands up, he studies the place. Where are we? So we're told it's a deep, wide area with a domed ceiling, curving away just out of hand's reach. The troop is spread out throughout the shadows. And Paul sees Jessica come up on one side and saw her examine their companions. And a wee point that he notes here, I think this is quite interesting for all that we learn of I suppose, what they learn through language, etc., is that he notes how Jessica fails to blend in with the Fremen, even though she's dressed, in clothing that's identical to them. That that you shouldn't be able to differentiate her from them, but you can. And it's to do with, we're told, the way that she moved, such a sense of power and grace. Now, so we get Chani talking to Paul at this point. Find a place to rest and stay out of the way, child man. So another little dig at him, I suppose. Chani said, here's food. And we're told that she presses 2 leaf-wrapped morsels into his hand and that they reek of spice. So this food is, I suppose, going to be our introduction to Fremen cuisine, if you like. But the fact that it's pretty much saturated with spice is going to be very, very important. And something as simple as accepting a meal here is going to have consequences for Paul. So this is where things start getting a wee bit interesting. Stilgar came up behind Jessica, called an order to a group on the left, get the door seal in place and see to moisture security. He turned to another Fremen, Lemel, get glow globes. He took Jessica's arm. I wish to show you something, weirding woman. He led her around a curve of rock toward the light source. And now, I just wanted to point something out here. And I don't know if I've done this before or not. This is, I suppose it's the point in the book where it's almost like a set of new beginnings here. And occasionally we encounter things that we have encountered previously. And maybe we just don't look at them in the same way. But I made a wee note about the glow globes here. And I know they appear right very early on in the book. And we're told suspensor buoyed illumination device. Self-powered by, I wondered if we picked up on this before. self-powered by melange spice mass, a device of the second stage of spice mining. So just having, I wonder if we did fail to look at that before, but I made a wee note here that in terms of melange use, that one of the uses of melange is that it powers dispenser lamps and glow globes, and it acts as a power source. And I've made a wee note underneath this, just the word vril. So again, the similarities between melange and the drug vril in The Coming Race by Edward Bulwer Lytton, or Vril, The Coming Race as it's also known, are incredible. Yeah, the similarities are incredible. Actually, I think it's the one drug I would say is most of most similarity to melange. Excuse me. So it's just a wee note about, and of course we are also paying, that people are paying once they've arrived. The first thing that Stilgar seems to be talking about is moisture security. Get door seals in place. They're concerned about losing moisture. And I suppose if it's the first order, then it's probably their primary concern, I'll take a wee sip of my beer here. Got a funny throat tonight, folks. Oh dear. So I'm trying to ease it with a beer, and I've got some honey here to my right. Excuse me. But I've done a good bit of tutoring today, unfortunately, so I've been talking for ages. So I'm hoping the old throat doesn't give up on me too badly. He said, gulping. There's Cynthia said, Doc, where did you find the info that the glow globes are powered by spice? Just curious. My glossary says that it's powered by organic batteries. Okay, here. Right. Let me just double check. That's a good question. Glow globes, dispenser brood. It's in the terminology of the Imperium, Cynthia. I'll read it to you. I've probably just paraphrased it there, but the entry under glow globe says suspensor buoyed illuminating device, self-powered brackets, usually by melange spice mass, close brackets, a device of the second stage in spice refining. So a bit like where there's different stages of the Holtzman effect. It seems that there are different stages, different uses of, I suppose, refinement of melange, but melange spice mass is what it's saying there. So there you go. That's where I was wondering. But yeah, it's interesting, Cynthia, because I've written this down here now, and I don't remember that. And I just so it's probably one of those things that we've, I suppose, but sometimes when you look at the terminology of the Imperium, I suppose the entries that you're looking at are dependent on what chapter of the book you're reading. But that's where it is, indeed. My glossary doesn't say that. We'll check my other copy of Dune after our discussion. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we all sorts of problems with editions of Dune. I'll tell you what, Cynthia, I'll do a quick check on my other copy. Because yeah, it's something that I think I missed. Pretty sure. The devil's in the detail. Let's have a look. In this edition, glow globe dispenser buoyed illuminating device, self-powered. Usually by melange spice mass. Oh, there's a misprint in this one. Yeah, my older copy actually has a bracket missing, but that's all. A device of the second stage in spice refining. So there's a bracket at usually by, but they don't close the bracket. But yeah, it is there. Dear oh dear, and this has got damage. Well, it's just a dust cover, I suppose, but it's got damaged in moving house. Sadly, a little bit of a tear. So yeah, Cynthia, it's do you know something? The amount of errata, as we'll call them, that's in the copy that I'm working with is compared, and it being a modern copy is incredible. But it seems that there's quite a range of publishing errors across. It'd be interesting. Some of I think it's kind of sad in a way for such a respected book to have so much. But I mean, this one's appalling. And the older copies, it seems, are vastly better in terms of there's one or two well-known mistakes, but that's about it. If you see what I mean. But yeah, that's interesting. If yours doesn't say that. I wonder if we've got let me see. You see, my first edition of Dune is technically the analogues. I don't think there's, but yeah, I must investigate further. But I suppose if anybody does have a first edition, they could check it for us. Details should be checked before publishing. Well, yeah, it's. I mean, even these are soon to be Emotion, the movie one, if you like. These ones are actually for the 50th anniversary edition repackaged. So they've made all these mistakes a wee while back, and then they've just reprinted this, I suppose. But I'd never had a copy of the book that called Peter de Vries consistently throughout it. That to me was quite bad, and I don't really know how that happened. Has to be a cut and paste or some kind or something, find and replace. Excuse me. But yeah, there you go. So it's another little interesting fact about Melange. And as I've often pointed out, the relationship between Dune and Samuel Butler's Erewhon's fundamentally linked to Vril, the Coming Race, and they're very similar books and have almost a similar intent in Victorian society. But yeah, for anybody who hasn't read Vril, by the way, or listened to it, I'm sure there's an audio version of it out there. It's really good if you like your kind of journey to the center of the earth type. But this is kind of almost your archetypal underground lizard people are coming to get us. This kind of thing story. It's very good though. That's where you get it's where we get Bovril from, and it has all sorts of little kind of even has a few conspiracy theories and stuff about it. But Vril was written by Edward Bulwer-Lytton, who's I think he was if I'm not mistaken, he was a Tory MP, Conservative MP, if that's the case, in the 19th century. Yeah, he's best known for the phrase, I'm pretty sure it's him, the pen is mightier than the sword. That would be Mr. Lytton. Excuse me. But there we go. Yeah, errors in books. So let's see, we get Jessica's point of view. We switch over there. Stilgar's given his orders, and he takes her by the arm and leads her around a curve of rock towards the light source. So we're told, again, a little bit more scene here. Jessica found herself looking out across the wide lip of another opening to the cave. Excuse me. An opening high in a cliff wall, looking out across another basin about 10 or 12 kilometers wide. The basin was shielded by high rock walls. Sparse clumps of plant growth were scattered around it. As she looked at the dawn-grey basin, the sun lifted over the far escarpment, illuminating a biscuit-coloured landscape of rocks and sand, and she noted how the sun of Arrakis appeared to leap over the horizon. So painting a picture for us here, and I think this is quite interesting. Stilgar has brought her here, and we're getting to see this really impressive view, if you like, for Arrakis, if you like, from a cave. And you could almost argue he's taken her to it's almost like a quite a romantic spot, if you like. Though that's not the case. I'd say it'll be a wee bit funny later on. But so we get a little bit more about her thoughts of this landscape, and it's because we want to hold it back. She thinks night is safer than day. And again, I suppose this is Fremen thinking, isn't it? So we get a bit, I suppose Jessica gets a bit whimsical here. There came over her then a longing for a rainbow in this place that would never see rain. Excuse me. I must suppress such longings, she thought. Oh, they're a weakness, and I no longer can afford weaknesses. Apologies, I got to drink more fluids here. My throat's a mess tonight, folks. And again, Stilgar gripped her arm. I've put he's a bit handsy here, isn't he? Excuse me. Possibly an attempt to regain control physically. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's just more he's directing her. But I've just made a wee note. He's still got hands on her. And he goes, there, you see proper Druses. And she looked where he pointed, saw movement, people on the basin floor scattering at the daylight into the shadows of the opposite cliff wall. Now, Druze is an interesting word. You have to love the way Herbert throws these things out casually, I suppose. It has a bunch of different meanings, and I have to tell you that. So this is it's great doing this. We learn so many things. Was a couple of weeks ago I learned the difference between accuracy and precision, which I thought was fantastic. I didn't know that at all. Druze here is a term that I was unfamiliar with. Though it seemed familiar to my worlded ear, if you like. So I did a bit of digging. So Druze is a term in a few different fields, if you like. And just to sort of differentiate them and pick out the one that we mean here, because Stilgar is going, there you see proper Druzes. So within geology, a Druze is a rock cavity with a crust of protecting crystals. And I actually thought, I wonder, is that what he means? But he's actually talking about people, so we'll get to that in a wee second. Within botany, a Druze is a round cluster of calcium oxalate crystals found in some plant cells. Now, it's also a term from German, which means a type of weathered ore. But in this case, it's from the word druze, which is, I suppose, Druze. I've got my info here from Wikipedia. So just if you want to check it out, I think these people are quite interesting. They're described as an Arabic-speaking esoteric ethno-religious group from Western Asia. So the religion would be Druzism. And it's again described as excuse me. I think this is quite interesting. I'm going to take a wee. There's a couple of things in this chapter I'm going to have a wee run back and look at just out of my own interest, and the Druze would be one of them. Described as an Abrahamic, monotheistic, syncretic, ethnic religion. Excuse me, and that the name means the people of monotheism. Have a look at them on Wikipedia or take a wee bookmark if you like. If you've got a bit of time, folks, they're quite interesting. I haven't had a chance to read it all, but certainly something that has piqued my curiosity. Yeah, they sound very interesting, actually. What was it? I suppose very quickly, just take a wee quick look at them. What was it that I thought was interesting in particular? Why would I have found them interesting? That's why. Right, bingo. So I'll just read you the introductory paragraph from Wikipedia here. As I get a little sip of beer. Hang on. So the Druze are an Arabic-speaking esoteric ethno-religious group from Western Asia who adhere to a religious faith that originally developed out of Ismailism, a branch of Shia Islam, although they do not identify as Muslims. They practice Druzism, which is an Abrahamic, monotheistic, syncretic, an ethnic religion based on the teachings of Hamza ibn Ali ibn Ahmad and ancient Greek philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and Zeno of Citium. It says that adherents of the Druze religion are called the people of monotheism. Al-Mawahadin, if I'm pronouncing Al-Mawahadin, there we go, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Bear with me, folks, for these tonight. Pronunciation is always a bit tricky when your throat's a mess. So yeah, it goes on to, I think the way I thought was interesting is it says it goes on to incorporate various elements of all sorts of faiths, including Ismailism, Christianity, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Pythagoreanism. So they sound like a real for want of a better term, a real melange religion, if you like. And yeah, I really don't know much about them at all. But I certainly intend to have a wee bit of a pore over that Wikipedia page. There we go. So that, in that sense, there you see proper druses. I think this is again another one, another nod to the various sort of ethno-religious groups that are deep in the, I suppose, in the Fremen's past, if you like. So Jessica looks to where he's pointing as he says this, and she sees movement, people on the basin floor, scattering at the daylight into the shadows of the opposite cliff wall. And we're told, in spite of the distance, their movements were plain in the clear air. She lifted her binoculars from beneath her robe, focused the oil lenses on the distant people. Kerchiefs fluttered like a flight of multicolored butterflies. So I think Stilgar's, it suggests that they do stick out like a sore thumb during the daytime. And it's not just, I suppose, Stilgar's troop that's been out past, excuse me, their bedtime, for want of a better term. So it paints a kind of a pretty picture of these almost like looking like butterflies in the distance. And I suppose if you think about Jessica's thoughts and her longing for a rainbow, they look like a flight of multicolored butterflies. Excuse me, folks. And of course, here we go. This is Stilgar. This is home. We will be there this night. And he stares across the basin, tugging at his mustache. And he's explaining this. My people stayed out overly at working. That means there are no patrols about. So it's safe to do so. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing this. I'll signal them later and they'll prepare for us. And Jessica replies, so we got a bit of conversation starting up here now. Your people show good discipline. She lowers her binoculars and sees Stilgar staring at his people. So his thoughts are on his people, I suppose. They obey the preservation of the tribe. It is the way we choose among us for a leader. Pardon me. The leader is the one who is the strongest, the one who brings water and security. And he lifts his attention to your face. So we're getting a talk about leadership here and what it is that makes the, I suppose, the Fremen tick, but we're getting an example of their law, what they're obedient to. And in this case, we're told they obey the preservation of the tribe, to preserve the tribe at all costs. That's their primary goal, I suppose. And it's also the way we choose amongst us for a leader is the one who is the strongest, I suppose, and the one who brings water and security. So strength is what they associate with leadership. And I suppose this is the problem that we're going to find out here, is that, of course, Jessica is stronger than Stilgar and has bested him. And we're going to see that's what this is actually about. There's a bit of subtext all here. And I suppose they're sizing each other up as well. Jessica returns Stilgar's stare, checks that we get a bit more description, I suppose, his whiteless eyes, his stained eye pits, a dust-rimmed beard and mustache that he was twirling upwards, the line of the catch tube curving down from his nostrils into his still suit. So Jessica's been quite astute here, and asks the direct question, have I compromised your leadership by besting you? And also reminding him that she's bested him. And of course, the answer is yes, by the way, she has. But his reply to her is, you did not call me out. And this is part of ritual, if you like. This is part of some kind of Fremen ritual. The suggestion is his leadership's not compromised because she hasn't called him out, I suppose. But I don't think that Jessica's getting this here, and I don't think we're meant to get it either. So we get the conversation going on, and it is diplomatic, I suppose. It's important, says Jessica, that a leader keep the respect of his troop. So, in other words, it's important that Stilgar keeps his respect, I suppose. And we get a bit of, I suppose, posturing from Stilgar here with the first sentence here. Isn't there one of these sand lice I can't handle? I cannot handle. But when you bested me, you bested us all. So as much as his own admission is that he's been bested, it's the fact that he's been bested is a defeat to all of the Fremen in his tribe, I suppose, in his troop. And now they hope to learn from you the weirding way. And we're told that some are curious to see if you intend to call me out. So this is I suppose the machinations of day-to-day living within I suppose a Fremen troop, but at a political level, how they choose their leaders, and I suppose how change of leadership goes about. And it's a bit sort of alpha male with a pack in some ways, isn't it? That idea, anyway. Stilgar is the strongest male. He'll rule. We'll see that it's not just strength though, with Stilgar. And we'll also see, by the way, that they're not having a private moment, if you like, up this part of this cave, looking out across the basin. That pretty much people are listening to them deliberately. Excuse me. So Jessica weighs the implications of this. Some are curious to see if you intend to call me out, is what Stilgar says, by besting you in formal battle. And Stilgar nods, yes. And he tells her, I advise you against this because they'd not follow you. You're not of the sand. They saw this in our night's passage. So simply put, I suppose Stilgar's pragmatism is that he would be bested by Jessica. So if there was a power grab here, all she has to do is call him out, defeat him, and technically she would be in charge of the Fremen. But he's telling her it's not that simple, really. And it's the bottom line here is that you're not of the sand. You don't know how to travel in the desert. Basically, you're a liability to them, so they wouldn't follow you. And Jessica, yeah, makes sense. Practical people. So this is all very diplomatic. And I suppose what ultimately they're both looking for here really is that there is a bit of a problem and they're looking for a solution. So true enough, says Stilgar as he glanced across at the basin, but we know our needs. But not many are thinking deep thoughts this close to home. We've been out overlong arranging to deliver our spice quota to the free traders for the cursed guild. May their faces be forever black. And he goes to turn away, and Jessica, quite rightly, stops him. So this is this is almost quite a casual throwout from Stilgar here. I suppose it's a discussion about the needs of the people, the needs of the tribe. But it's the reason why they're late is that they've been delivering a spice quota to the free traders for the cursed guild. So they're paying the guild spice. And he almost drops this and just goes to walk away. And Jessica, whoa, the guild? What has the guild to do with your spice? Now, Stilgar, here we go. This is one of our mysteries in Dune, and it's about to be solved quite neatly for us. It is Liet's command. So what's the guild got to do with your spice? This is Liet's command. What is? Well, we're delivering a quota to them, so we're paying them. So we know the reason for it. We know why we do it, but it sours us, but we don't like it. So here we go. We bribed the guild with a monstrous payment in spice. Monstrous payment in spice. I like that. And why? To keep our skies clear of satellites and such that none may spy what we do to the face of Arrakis. And there we go. I just put made a big note with stars all around it. One of our mysteries revealed. Why can't, as we go back in time, to looking at the Atreides and as they begin to take over and plan for taking over Arrakis. Why can't they have satellites? Why can't they have weather control? And of course, Thufir Howard tells him that, I think, isn't it, that the guild meet with him not to arrange a price with them, but to simply tell them that no matter what they offer, their price will always be outside of their range. We're not letting you buy this tech. So this is why aren't there any satellites over the skies of Arrakis? Because the Fremen are bribing the guild an outrageous amount of spice to make it so. There we go. So this is interesting phrase, of the sand. It softens the impact of calling people sand lice, since such lice are certainly of the sand, whatever else they may be. Not of the... Yeah, I suppose that I was thinking a bit about this, Cynthia. The Stilgar, if you wanted to break it down in terms of Fremen language, swears a fair bit. And I think, the variety of the terms that he uses, I suppose it's sand lizards, lice, other even worms and things like that. I suppose they're just sort of meant to give us a sense of colloquial swear words, if you like. Sand lice, yes, indeed. But not of the sand. Yeah, nothing to do with sand at all. Softens the impact of calling people sand lice. Yeah, it's the same with the way he insults Chani. And you just get that it's kind of good natured, and he's just barking, if you like, and they accept it as such. That he hasn't called anybody anything particularly nasty so far, not by my terms. I'd say Dune's not got many swear words in it at all. But yeah. And I think, wasn't it, we were talking about misprint the other week, actually, with Liet Kynes. What was it? Somebody pointed out the first time, I'm a steward of this land, but the second time it's just, I'm a steward of the sand. He thought that's the one from chapter 30. I think I had land twice. Another misprint. So, yeah, the mystery is revealed here. Jessica weighed out her words, remembering Paul had said that there must be a reason Arrakeen's skies were clear of satellites. There you go. And so, okay. So again, picking up on all of his words, the last part of his sentence was, "and such that none may spy what we do to the face of Arrakis." And so again, the direct question, and I like, sometimes, I don't know, the way, the phrasing of some of the speech, I think, within Dune's a bit not so hot, but I like the way this question's phrased. And just Jessica saying, "And what is it you do to the face of Arrakis that must not be seen?" And it pretty much says it all. I think it's a great phrase there. And Stilgar tells her quite readily, "We change it slowly, but with certainty, to make it fit for human life. Our generation will not see it, nor our children, nor our children's children, nor the grandchildren of their children, but it will come." And he stared with veiled eyes over the basin. And here we go. This is the dream, I suppose. This is the dream of Liet Kynes, the dream of the Fremen, the dream of Pardo Kynes. Why do they do it? What is it they want? To change the face of the planet. Let me see, just to find the spot here. Hang on, 20. And he stared with veiled eyes out over the basin, and open water, and tall green plants, and people walking freely without stillsuits. That's their dream. And of course, that's the dream of this Liet Kynes. So we get two kind of revelations here. What's the whole deal with the satellites? Solved. That's to do with the bribe from the Fremen, so that nobody can spy on them. Why? Or another mystery, so that they can change the face of Arrakis to make it suitable for human habitation. So they're terraforming the planet, as part of I suppose, an environmental sort of religious dream. And whose dream is it? This is the dream of Leat Kynes, and I think this and Pardo Kynes, and I think this is going to be important as we move along here. We're going to discuss something about the Missionaria Protectiva in a little bit, and I think that's kind of to do with it, the dream of the Kynes family, if you like. So Jessica says bribes are dangerous. They have a way of growing larger and larger. Again, showing her own knowledge and pragmatism, I suppose. Quite right. And Stilgar acknowledges this rather than deny it. They grow. But the slow way is the safe way. And I put how slow. We'll get an answer to that, won't we? Eventually, and we'll get. I'm pretty sure that we get that answer in Children of Dune. This actually happens far too quickly. By Stilgar's estimates, where are we? Generation, not children, children's children, grandchildren. It's but it will come 5 to 6 to maybe 8 generations. I've put here, which is pretty fast in terms of I suppose that, and one of the things that Herbert wants us to think about is the time scales, if you like, of I suppose ecological ideas. The slow way is the safe way. Caution. Jessica turns to look over the base and see the way Stilgar does. She wants to use her imagination to see what he sees when he looks out like this. Can she see this dream? And we're told that she saw only grey mustard. The grey mustard stain of distant rocks and a sudden hazy motion in the sky above cliffs. And Stilgar goes, Now, I'm not too sure what you think here. Just where Stilgar goes, I just put, is that a wee laugh? Is that like a wee laugh of pleasure, etc.? Is it, or is it, is it more, look at this? I wasn't too sure. So, sudden hazy motion in the sky above the cliffs. She thought at first it must be a patrol vehicle. And then we're told that no, she realized that it was a mirage. Another landscape hovering over the desert sand, a distant wavering of greenery, and in the middle distance, a long worm traveling the surface with what looked like Fremen robes fluttering on its back. And then we're told the mirage faded. Oh, that kind of interesting. Mirage comes from the word mirari, which is to wonder at, isn't it? To wonder at something. So we got a bit of this landscape that appears, wavering of greenery. It's almost as if this dream appears in front of her, and of course, in front of her and Stilgar, this mirage. And I think it's quite interesting. Yeah. It says the mirage faded, and I wondered, is it shared? But I think it is. Yeah. So Stilgar comments, it would be better to ride, but we cannot permit a maker into this basin. Thus, we must walk. Now, Jessica's thoughts on this. I think we've had a wee chat about this before as well, but let's have a wee look. So, maker, and again, focusing on words, particular aspects of language, is their word for worm. Maker. Now, let's have a wee look. So, maker, just within the terminology of the Imperium, just says "Si Shai Hulud," and I think we looked at this the last time. I think we were talking about the relationship with the old man of the desert and Proteus. Sandworm of Arrakis, the old man of the desert. This is the entry under Shai Hulud, old father eternity and grandfather of the desert. Significantly, this name, when referred to in a certain tone or written with capital letters, designates the earth deity of Fremen hearth superstitions. Sandworms grow to enormous size. Specimens longer than 400 meters have been seen in the deep desert and live to great age unless slain by one of their fellows or drowned in water, which is poisonous to them. Most of the sand on Arrakis is credited to sandworm action. See Little Maker. So sometimes the terminology bounces around a bit. Another term with the word maker in it, little maker. The half plant, half animal, deep sand vector of the Arrakis sandworm, the little maker's excretions form the pre-spice mass. A little bit more about the life cycle of the worm there as well. And of course, we also have maker hooks, the hooks that are used for capturing, mounting, and steering a sandworm of Arrakis. So whenever we hear the term maker, it's pretty much good for the worm Shai-Hulud, take your pick if you like. And let me see. I've pointed out that the word poesis, the word to do with the word poetry, etc., and what that means. Poesis from the Greek word to make, and the maker of Dune. Let's see, the definitive guide to the life work of science fiction's grandest creator, Frank Herbert. Insights of a Master of Science Fiction. This is quite a good wee book, edited by Timothy O'Reilly. Choice of that title, The Maker of Dune. So you could almost substitute poet, if you like, the poet of Dune. A maker, a poet, poem. So I think there's something really interesting about the use of that word. And in particular, I'm a person that teaches poetry. Now and then. Oh, excuse me. Now and then. Goodness. Now and then. That's better, isn't it? Let's see. So, on we go. Philosophy. Poesis is the activity in which a person brings something into being that did not exist before. Derives from the ancient Greek term, which means to make, and is related to the word poetry, which shares the same root. There we go. That was an easy. Wikipedia is quite useful for things like that, isn't it? Finding stuff quickly. As I often pointed out, if you think about it in terms of literature, they always say that Shakespeare is the bard, but Homer is the poet, if you like. Sets things up nicely there, I think. So maker, their word for worm. She's measured the import of his words, the statement that they could not permit a worm, could not allow it into this basin. That's interesting. I put it suggests control. And she knew what she had seen in the mirage. Fremen riding on the back of a giant worm. And then we're told it took heavy control not to betray her shock at the implications. And I thought this is quite a fun wee thing, actually. Of course, the questions are, what are the implications that these people ride these giant worms, form of transport, use as a weapon, that kind of thing, etc. And there's all sorts of implications. I think it's quite funny, but my favorite one is that the Fremen use their deity as a form of transport, and arguably as a form of public transport, if you like, that it's a mass transit device, and also as a weapon, I suppose, aren't they? But yes, it's heavy control not to betray her shock at the implications of this. So I suppose that's one of the great things about Dune, isn't it? And we've got to see it on TV and in the cinema, is what happens when a whole bunch of deadly stormtroopers, or Sardaukar, if you like, encounter a man riding a giant worm. And it's squish time, isn't it? It's great fun. It's certainly a difference in a massive difference in scale, isn't it? But heavy control not to betray her shock at the implications of these people control the worms of Arrakis. And I suppose, of course, we know there's a relationship between the worms and the spice. Excuse me. Now, Stilgar says we must be getting back to the others, else people may suspect I dally with you. Some are already jealous that my hands tasted your loveliness when we struggled last night in Tuano Basin. And I think this is quite funny. I don't know. I'm on record that Frank doesn't write sex scenes very well. Um, and I'm not quite sure what this is. If it's an attempt at, and I suppose there's different implications in this, and it's meant to be presented this way. That there's subtext in what Stilgar is saying, but it's still a bit funny, I think. Quite serious about the dream of his people changing the world and all of this stuff, but we must get back, otherwise people might suspect I dally with you. And I know he's probably not saying it this way, but the way it's presented, some are already jealous that my hands tasted your loveliness when we struggled last night in Tuano Basin. So it's a way of interpreting what happened to him the previous night. My hands tasted your loveliness. You kicked the shit out of me and nearly half strangled me is kind of what I thought happened to him. But as opposed to his hands tasting. What did I write next? This question, is this Stilgar's smooth talk? Is this his hello, if you know what I mean? And I've just wrote down, it reminded me on Rajesh and the Big Bang Theory, trying to talk to women. Is this an offer? And then I put subtext. So again, I'm as I'm making these notes, I'm reading along just like you guys would be, not always sure what is about to happen next. So Jessica snaps at him, and that will be enough of that. Enough of this bullshit. No, cut your nonsense. And I think it is quite, yeah. Once we get that response from Jessica, then I think going back and Stilgar's little talk about some are already jealous that my hands tasted your loveliness when we struggled last night in Tuano Basin. I think I don't think it's probably come out quite correctly, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is that they're trying to navigate a difficult conversation here, and how best to go about it. I suppose Stilgar's opening line is not the best. So she snaps at him. That'll be enough of that. And his response is in a mild voice. No offense. And then, women amongst us are not taken against their will. And with you, even that convention isn't required. So this language I think this is quite appalling, isn't it? Oh. Sorry, I'm not meaning to gulp this beer, folks, but my throat is really bad. I'll just see what Cynthia has to say. I'm going to take a wee quick run to the kitchen and grab another bottle here because I'm out. OT, isn't Tuano where the God Emperor chose to marry Hawaii? Oh, I wouldn't remember. Let me see. I tell you what, we could probably find out very quickly. Let's have a look. Oh, here, hang on. Better find the folder with that stuff in it first of all. Right, where do we keep science fiction, fantasy literature, Dune, God Emperor? Let's see. Let's hit find. Oh, okay. Tomorrow we've got. Let's have a read out. Small village of Museum Fremen at the edge of Sarir. Moneo says it's called Tuano. Tuano Basin. Let's see. Yeah, it's definitely there in God Emperor of Dune. Yes, you're absolutely correct. I'll just find it there. There we go. Moneo stared across the gloomy distance of the crypt. Lord, is it not a desecration to you? Forget Moneo, who lives in me. He spoke then in Chani's voice. I can do what I want with my water rings. Moneo cowered. Yes, Lord, I will bring them with me to Tabr village. When Tabr village? Leto asked in his usual voice. But I have changed my mind. We will be wed at Tuano village. There we go. Idaho stood aghast at his first close glimpse of Tuano village. That was the home of Fremen. That's from the Stolen Journals, I think, is it? So yes, you're correct. There we go. Because my memory for the God Emperor is just not good at all. But that is, by the looks of it, yes, indeed, Cynthia, you're correct. So Tuano Basin to the Cave of the Ridges and Sietch Tabr, all very important places in this, I suppose. And I suppose that's us finding out, whenever I figured out that this place, that where they were at last night, the previous night was Tuano Basin, then I doubled back to the previous chapter just to update the notes that that's where that location took place. It was handy being able to do that, I suppose. But yeah. In fact, I could make a wee note of that actually at some point. Where are we right now? Tuano, where did you go? Tuano Basin. Oh, hang on. GODs. God Emperor of Dune weds here. Weds there. Very good. So where they get married where Jessica first bested Stilgar. Excellent, that's cool. So yeah, no offense, women. This is, I don't know what you think about this. No offense, women amongst us are not taken against their will. In other words, they're not raped. And with you, even that convention isn't required. If you break, I've just put it down, written this down. Break it down is we don't rape women, because of convention, but we'll especially not rape you. And I've just written, what the fuck does that mean? Excuse my French, but that's appalling. Very bizarre thing to say. Let me see. And it seems to be, no offense, it seems to be getting less diplomatic here, I think. But we're getting this is how the Fremen treat their women. Women are not taken against their will. And with you, even that convention isn't required. So you will keep in mind that I was a Duke's lady. Jessica says, she said, but her voice was calmer. So mild voice is snapping, mild voice, calmer voice. So as you wish, Stilgar said. And again, he seems keen to be away with this. It's time to seal off this opening to permit, that word again, relaxation of stillsuit discipline. My people need to rest in comfort this day. Their families will give them little rest on the morrow. And then a silence fell between them. So Jessica stares out into the sunlight, and I suppose everything that Stilgar has just said, you could argue some of it's pretty offensive, probably, to Jessica. I would think so. But why is he saying it? And there is a shift in Stilgar's language, and she's picking up on it. She'd heard. Let me see. Let me just read this. She had heard what she had heard in Stilgar's voice. So here it is, an unspoken offer of more than his countenance. I suppose that's one way of putting it, isn't it? Did he need a wife? And at this point, she realized that she could step into that place with him. And it would be one way to end conflict over tribal leadership, female properly aligned with male. Pardon me. So, simply put, there is a subtext to what I've called Stilgar's sexy talk, if you like. And that there's a suggestion that you can marry me. Why? In terms of, I suppose, leadership, it would give her a proper place within the tribe, and it would be seen as a right kind of thing to do, in that they would be a pairing of the right balance of male and female, and that would be accepted within their society, if you like. They're looking for a role for Jessica. So this is being a wife to Stilgar. And I suppose what level of protection would that offer her? what place would that give her in society? And she realizes, yeah, she can fit right into that. So I suppose one of the things that we should consider in this chapter as we go through it is Spanningsbogen. The desire for something that, oh, should I reach for something, or should I hang on a minute? If you know what I mean, take a moment to think about it. So here's option. It's almost like option number one. It's a potential offer of safety, and she could probably just accept it. But there's more to this. And the way she thinks about it is female properly aligned with male. But of course, and especially in the previous chapter. Now, if I can find this wee bit quickly. Jessica's a wee bit disturbing in some senses in the previous chapter. Her sense of elation. The idea of controlling and manipulating these people, but it's the point where I wonder if I can find it, where she realizes that it's all she's prepared to even die for Paul. That Paul's ascendancy, that's I think is how she put it. There we go. I've just found it. The sudden need of Paul's ascendancy overrode all other considerations, and of course, as much as this has all been going on between her and Stilgar, in comes that need, that desire to put Paul first, if you like, but to make sure he's protected. But what of Paul then? Who knows the rules of parenthood here? If parenthood prevailed here. If I marry this man, would he murder my child? Is it this kind of thing, or would he cast them out? This all this sort of thing. All sorts of things can happen there. What of the unborn daughter that she'd carried these few weeks? So again, what of a dead duke's daughter? There's things that Stilgar doesn't know. There are variables. How would the Fremen behave towards her? How would he behave towards her? How would he behave towards Paul? And we get that. Here's another time use of the word permitted or permit. She permitted herself to face fully the significance of this other child growing within her. It's going to be Alia. To see her own motives on permitting the conception. Permitting again her motives. And we're told she knew what it was. She had succumbed. All right. Oh, sorry, hang on a second. She knew what it was. She had succumbed to that profound drive shared by all creatures who are faced with death. The drive to seek immortality through progeny. The fertility drive of the species had overpowered them. And I suppose that's her and Leto. The profound drive shared by all creatures who are faced with death is to seek immortality through progeny. I'm not sure if I agree with that. Right, bear with me 1 wee second, folks. I'm just going to go get some fluids. I'll be right back. Oh. There we go. Oh, that's Joseph Smith saying hi. Hi, Joseph. How you doing? So I was just away getting some fluids here. And, I got a bar fly. Look out, little fly. Get out the road. Oh, hang on. Unacceptable. Don't want you drowning. Come on. There we go. There we go. So I'm literally that guy would save a fly. Wouldn't harm a fly. There we go. Alright. Sorry, my throat's a wee bit iffy, Joseph, so I was just getting some more fluids there. It's just from doing a lot of talking actually today. Otherwise it was fine. So hope you're keeping well. There we go. That's better. Just have to remember to keep sipping more often, I think. Excuse me. As Joseph saying, this is my breakfast chat as I work nights, little tea, toast, and some gin to start my day. Excellent. My world's changing at the minute a bit, Joseph, in that I'm kind of having to deal with mornings quite a lot, in a nice way. So yeah, but I still haven't got the hang of breakfast yet. But that's cool. That's excellent. Good morning to you then, Joseph. So yeah, you've just missed, I suppose, a bit of banter between Jessica and Stilgar. And as I said, we've been talking about the subtext there and permitting, this word permit and being permitted to do things here. And Jessica's, I suppose, evaluating her own motives. But what of Paul becomes the primary concern, I suppose. What of Alia? Sorry, not that Alia's got a name. What of her unborn daughter at this point? And that's why she allowed to happen. She sees it as the fertility drive of the species had overpowered them. And she looks at Stilgar, and he is studying her, waiting. And I think these are Jessica's fears, just Jessica's questions, what she's wondering about, her speculations. A daughter born here to a woman wed to such a one as this man. What would the fate of such a daughter be? Pardon me. Would he try to limit the necessities that a Bene Gesserit must follow? So she's starting to size up sort of Stilgar in terms of, I suppose, a potential parent to her children. And again, we're going to get a real sort of, she's running a real careful eye over Stilgar, paying real attention to him, trying to figure out what kind of man he is. And at this point, he's being patient, I suppose. But he was being patient. Stilgar cleared his throat and and revealed then that he understood some of the questions in her mind. So this is quite interesting. He has a fair idea of what's going through her mind. Not everything, but it shows that he's got a degree of, I suppose, understanding and possibly empathy for her. What's important, and this is before we go any further, again, we're really focusing on leadership within this chapter. What's important for a leader is that which makes him a leader. I thought a bit male-centric there, but we'll go with it anyway. It is the needs of his people. If you teach me your powers, there may come a day when one of us must challenge the other. I would prefer some alternative. So again, I've just written this as diplomacy. And Jessica inquires there are several alternatives. So the first one that's really been presented here is marriage. So he's telling, I suppose we're cutting through the chase here, cutting to the chase a bit here. He's saying that regardless of what happens, if you teach me this, whatever, etc., one of these days they're going to want me to call you, one of us to call the other out, to see who's the strongest, because the strongest should lead. He would prefer an alternative. So marriage is one thing. Jessica asks, are there several alternatives? Well, yeah, apparently. So Stilgar says, the Sayadina, our Reverend Mother, is old. And their Reverend Mother, Jessica thinks, a role for her. Now, Sayadina, let me see, what have I written here? Within Arabic and Persian, it's from the word Said, which means Sir, Lord, Master, etc. And Saida is the feminine term of that word. Now, before she could probe this, Stilgar says, Dune, and again, I think this is kind of interesting. I don't necessarily offer myself as mate, Nothing personal. So, as much as he's saying enough, and I suppose that I don't know if that lines up with his talk earlier. But we can find you a husband. It might not necessarily be me. Why not? Because if he's the strongest, why would she settle for anything less than him? If you see what I mean. But he says it's nothing personal. Again, this is more to do with pragmatism. For you're beautiful and desirable. But should you become one of my women, that might lead some of my young men to believe that I'm too concerned with pleasures of the flesh and are not concerned enough with the tribe's needs. Um, so basically, I suppose the right match would be in terms of what these two are talking about. And I suppose this is like looking for a place for Jessica within the tribe, if you like, but a place of safety. But she's looking for a position of power. She is powerful, and I suppose in terms of the way Stilgar and the Fremen looks at things, she probably should be married or mated to him if that's the way they look at it. But the fact is that he's a whole bunch of wives by the looks of it, or one of his women. And it might lead some of the young men to believing I'm too concerned with pleasures of the flesh. So even now they listen to us and watch us. So they're being spied on. And I suppose where we've had a bit of subtext within this conversation, it shifts again here. It's a beautiful day here in Washington State. Excellent, Joseph. It's been nice enough here for the last few days, but we're shifting into autumn and starting to get colder. A lot more moisture in the air, but the clouds are all very dramatic at the minute. But yeah, a good old. I suppose we're having a lot of good old fashioned Irish rain. Lately. Yeah. I've been down walking, Joseph. I've been down because I've been getting up in the mornings and stuff. I've been taking the dogs, down to. We live the major river that runs north south through Northern Ireland is called the River Bann, and it's a rather pretty river. It's a bit dangerous, but I've been down walking the dogs amongst the part of I suppose what you would call primeval forest. Down there at the riverside. It's the site of one of the oldest inhabited sites in Ireland, actually. But really sad to discover the whole place. They've got ash dieback all riddled throughout the whole place. A lot of the trees are dying. I suspect Irish rain is pretty great, though. Yeah, well, we have an awful lot of different types of rain here. Different types of rain. 40 shades of green, isn't it what they say about Ireland? But because there's 40 shades of rain, but I'd say there's a lot more. We've all different types of rain. But if you didn't like the rain, you wouldn't leave the door. You wouldn't leave the house in this country. It rains all the time, Joseph. But yeah, sounds like a beautiful day in Washington State. Washington State's the top left, northwest of America, isn't it? Like Seattle, is that? Or is my geography wrong? I think that's where I'm thinking of. I don't know much. My geography is awful with America. Yeah, Washington. I'm not so bad. Saying that I couldn't name all the states of America at all. The Herbert homeland of the Northwest is very rainy. We're famous for it. Yeah. I like the rain, I have to say. I love it. Which is one of the things I suppose that makes Dune interesting for me. I not a particularly widely traveled person. I've never been to a desert, for example, ever. And to live in a country where it just rains all the time, I'd love to see the contrast, of going somewhere that's. I'd love to take a trip to a desert just to check it out. It'd be fantastic, Arctic or otherwise, I suppose. Arctic or dry, or was it cold desert or dry desert? That's what I'm thinking of. Now let's see, where were we? I procrastinate. I digress. So now this is we're getting a little bit of setup here as well, and we've already had a little bit, but this is going to develop with the character of Janus. And I suppose that the character of Janus is it. We've talked a wee bit about this. Is a deliberate comment about male aggression in youth, and so we're going to get a little bit of what. And this is going to lead up to the next chapter where we're getting some of this set up and a little bit of probably foreshadowing as we go along in this chapter. So we've been told that they're listening. There are those among us. Sorry, there are those among my young men who have reached the age of wild spirits. That's a euphemism, isn't it? Wild spirits. They must be eased through this period. So again, Stilgar discussing his leadership, if you like. I must leave no great reasons around for them to challenge me, because I would have to maim and kill amongst them. Pardon me, for their benefit. I made a wee note here. So it's one of those things again where it's funny because I maybe don't read Stilgar the way maybe some people do, but whenever we're looking at what he says, there's often some suggestive threat within some elements of it, whenever it's to do with his own people. Yeah. I suppose it's maybe we're told barking orders, etc., etc. Wee bits of insults and stuff like that. I suppose, and we've seen how he dealt with Janus the previous time. He has patience, but there's a bit of I don't know, a bit of male aggression that comes out in Stilgar himself, and I suppose we're wondering, is that a tool for control? That if he is I suppose like an alpha male type, he has to pretend to have teeth and bark at them every now and then, if you see what I mean. But basically, I don't want to give them any excuses to have a go at me. If I marry you, you become my wife, etc. That's just, Stilgar takes all the women, Stilgar has all the women, blah blah blah, and it's there's an imbalance. And if he was challenged, he's pointing out that I would have to maim and kill among them. So it's not that he's bothered about a challenge. I'm the superior Dougie. Here's what he's saying, and I would just kill them, because he knows they're listening. This is for their benefit, but also for their benefit. I suppose this is tempered by reason and wisdom, isn't it? This is not the proper course for a leader. It might be all right for wild young men, but it's not for a leader. It can be, if it can be avoided with honor. I think honor is a very dodgy word, by the way. I think you can have integrity. Integrity is a much better thing to have. But people who go on about their honor can be quite horrific in the things that people will do for honor, or in the name of their own honor. You know, I suppose we have honor killings and stuff like that. So honor is one of those words that's a bit. It has, I suppose, many connotations these days, doesn't it? But I would look at it in a negative light, to be honest with you now, unless I was looking at in terms of things in the past, like chivalry or something like that. So again, more lessons on leadership from Stilgar. A leader, you see, is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. I've written underneath this, I don't know if you agree with me, but I've written, I disagree utterly. What do I disagree with? A leader is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. Nope, don't believe that for a minute. He maintains the level of individuals. Too few individuals and a people revert to a mob, and I don't agree with that either. To be honest with you, we would have a lot of mobs, I think, in this country. One of the interesting things, folks, I suppose now, goodness, I remember chatting to you a wee bit about Carrick Fergus Castle in Ireland. I don't know if the book is about. Everything's all over the place in this house at the moment. Nothing's easy to find. But I think I was telling you that it's one of the oldest Norman castles in Ireland, and it's fully intact. And what a lovely thing to go and visit if you ever happen to be in Northern Ireland. But there's a news story, I think, on the BBC, or else the local Belfast Telegraph, which would be the main paper here, basically just saying that Carrick Fergus is now a no-go area and that it's controlled by UDA terrorists. Pretty much, and I'm quite just appalled to read that, And for anybody who's been with us since we've been online, you may have heard me talk about this wonderful castle and this very famous castle in a town called Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland. And just to read that on the news, so-called peace that we've got, but to hear that this town's supposed to be a no-go zone. I went to primary school in that town. And went to the primary school right next to the castle, and I loved it. Loved the castle. I mean, I didn't like the town very much, but it's very sad to hear that. So if anybody's heading to Northern Ireland, don't go to Carrickfergus and visit the castle. Stay away. It's not safe, by all accounts. And I don't see that changing very quickly. It's a very, very sad state of affairs. Now, so again, I don't know if you agree with me. These statements about a leader being something that distinguishes a mob from a people. I think a mob is controlled generally by an individual or a small group of individuals. And it says he maintains the level of individuals, but too few individuals and a people revert to a mob. Mob can be controlled with one person. And we've seen it in this country, by the way. I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with whenever we talk about Adolf Hitler, for example, when we talk about the way he speaks and whips, the use of his voice and how he would whip crowds into a frenzy and so on and so forth. We've had a couple of people like that over here, not quite to that extreme, but an individual can turn. And I think you've seen it probably with Donald Trump recently as well, What year is it right now? I thought all of that was over. No, the Troubles are not. The Troubles is a euphemism, Joseph. It's 2022. I know none of it ended, to be honest. But yeah, I think things are degrading in certain places here at the minute. But no, it never ended. Its language changed, Joseph, which I think for anybody who reads Dune might think that's interesting. But we don't have terrorists. We don't have terrorist attacks. For example, we have paramilitary style attacks. It's a bit like Gangnam style. We have paramilitary style. But no, it's all a load of hooey. It's nothing has changed. But it's really sad to hear that a town, this is a reasonably sized town, quite a large town, I'd say, quite a well-known town, yeah, it's a major town in Northern Ireland. To hear that it's under the control of essentially a small terrorist organisation who are not much different than a mob, it is appalling for a modern society. So I don't know what the equivalent of it would be like in America, but it'd be like, I don't know. I suppose it'd be like the Ku Klux Klan taking over Washington, D.C. Not Washington, it wouldn't be that bad, but I suppose I'm trying to think of a big city in America. Chicago, there you go. That would do. Not the biggest or most important, but a pretty big one, Learning is fun. It is, Joseph. Mobs. Great part of a lot of old sort of so January 6th, that's your Trump, isn't it? Yes, indeed. That was appalling to watch. Yeah. Bizarre. Yeah. An individual can control a mob, no problem. And it's often, I would argue that a leader, as he says here, distinguishes a mob from a people. I disagree, how mobs behave is fascinating. It really says a lot about humans, I think, and how we behave in groups. Pardon me. And I've witnessed mobs being close to me and never felt any compunction whatsoever to follow them or do what they're doing. I'm going in the opposite direction to these people. So, Jessica's analysis here is what I've put next. Let me see. Right. Sorry. Just got to turn the page here, folks. Bear with me. His words, this is what she thinks. His words, the depth of their awareness, the fact that he spoke as much to her as, excuse me, as to those who secretly listened, forced her to reevaluate him. So this man's not quite what she thought to start with. And she's, I suppose, in terms of somebody that she's basically bested in combat, they're getting to have they're discussing things, they're getting to see a little bit of each other's cultures, if you like, and she learns a lot about through the Fremen through Stilgar's language and his mannerisms, how he holds himself. And he seems to be coming across as quite an impressive man to to Jessica. He has stature, she thought. I would have gone with, presence. Where did he learn such inner balance? So she's finding admirable things about this man. And that as much as he can bark at the Fremen, he can also say immediately after, that's not what a good leader is. That he can temper himself and try to maintain a balance between, I suppose, swearing and knocking heads, which is not what he wants to do, because it's not for the benefit of the tribe, is it? The well-being of the tribe is above all things, and that includes everybody in it. Maintaining the level of individuals. It's an interesting little thought process, I suppose. So she does reevaluate him. And then her thoughts are interrupted, I suppose. The law that demands our form of choosing a leader is just a law, Stilgar said. But it does not follow that justice is always the thing a people needs. What we truly need now is time to grow and prosper, to spread our force over more land. And of course, again, Jessica wonders, who is this guy? What is his ancestry? Whence comes such breeding? She said. And of course, an admission to Stilgar, a bit of honesty, which is always useful in diplomacy. I underestimated you, Stilgar. You're not what I thought you were at all. There's more to you than meets the eye. What he says is that the law demands our form of choosing a leader is a just law, so it's a sensible law. Laws pertaining to justice are one thing. Laws pertaining to what's right and what's wrong, or laws pertaining to order and control, I suppose, are all different. But it does not follow that justice is always the thing a people needs. That's an interesting statement. What we truly need now is time to grow and prosper. Growth and prosperity. To spread our force over more land. As I said, what's his ancestry? When comes such ancestry? I've just made a wee note here. This is it's Bene Gesserit thinking. It's probably already, if you think about what's his ancestry, what's his breeding, and it's almost, wouldn't this one make a good addition to the Bene Gesserit breeding program? That kind of thing. We must preserve this bloodline. I almost get the way that's the way she should be thinking. So Stilgar, I underestimated you. There's going to be a bit of back and forth here. Stilgar's response was my suspicion. Yeah. Each of us apparently underestimated the other. Again, diplomacy. And Stilgar's quite forthright here. I should like an end to this. I should like friendship with you and trust. I should like that respect for each other, which grows in the breast without demands of the huddlings of sex. Did I read that? Sorry, that's my bad handwriting. Failed me here. Let's see. Yeah. Respect for each other, which grows in the breast without demand for the huddlings of sex. There we go. In other words, a platonic relationship, please. Jessica says, I understand. Do you trust me? Says Stilgar. The response here is, I hear your sincerity. That means no to me. Excuse me. But it's not saying no, is it? He's being sincere. Among us, the Sayadina, when they are not the formal leaders, hold a special place of honor. So it seems that the Sayadinas can be leaders of Fremen troops, if you like. But whenever they're not, they hold a special place of honor. They teach, they maintain the strength of God here. And touched his breast. So a religious leader, in other words, as opposed to, I suppose, a political, economic, and military leader within the tribe. Excuse me. So this is a way out for Jesse. Not a way out, I suppose. It's a way in, isn't it? A way to have a role within Fremen society. Could marry Stilgar. Could marry one of these wild young men, if you like. But there is another way, and it's basically the Sayadina. So this is a way for, and now I must probe the Reverend Mother mystery. So certain words have been used, and of course the Fremen have used the term Reverend Mother, and that's ping. That's a Bene Gesserit term. Why do these people know it, or how has it evolved to fit into their language, if you like? So, and again, this is Jessica working the problem. I've written this down a couple of times, but you spoke of your Reverend Mother, and I've heard words of legend and prophecy. So it's Jessica needs to know, I suppose, what part of the Missionaria Protectiva is in place here. So to go about kind of trying to fit into the role of that story that she would have in it. Pardon me. And here we get it. Stilgar says, so this is part of it. It is said that a Bene Gesserit, that will be her role, and her offspring hold the key to our future. So, do you believe I am that one? Says Jessica. And she watches his face, thinking, the young reed dies so easily. Beginnings are times of such great peril. So we've had this reinforced in the previous chapter, that this is kind of a new beginning as Jessica and Paul meet the Fremen, and they have this encounter in Tuano Basin where Jessica beats Stilgar. That's a new start. They're beginning their lives as part of the Fremen. But this chapter again is almost a beginning as well. And I'm completely honestly going to say that the next chapter following this with Jamis, that they're all, and there's a triumvirate of them, if you like. There's three of them in a row. And it's unusual within the structure of Dune, because often when we move forward in the action, then we move back, we move forward, we move back within our chapters and our separations between characters. It's a good way of driving the narrative, bringing it back, reminding us of things, and creating points of tension. But in particular with Dune, it really helps give us, lets us get the sense of foreknowledge, and giving us kind of an idea of what it's like to have a little bit of prescience. We're always a wee bit more clued in. You know, we actually have absolute knowledge of events that are going to happen in Dune. Yeah. So a Bene Gesserit will come, and her offspring holds the key to our future. Do you believe that I'm the one? And she studies him. We don't know, he says. I made a wee note here, by the way, about reeds. Probably, as I was saying to you, Joseph, because I've been down running around this primordial forest down at the River Ban along the riverside with the dogs today, and there's loads of reeds there. The last time I'd been down that kind of part of the river was when my grandfather was alive, and he used to fish there. And we're talking before 1981, and I was very young, and that was what I always remembered, was the big reeds down at the side of the river. So the young reed dies so easily, or Ben like the reed in the wind. And I was mentioning the reeds in the reed, very similar quote in the Irish, in the Ulster epic, the Toyn Bo Cully. Something very similar. So I just did a wee quick nosy, and that just reeds within Celtic mythology um, are associated with death and the spirit world and this kind of thing, in a negative connotation and in a positive connotation, if you like. So they're also associated with, I suppose, what you would call anthropopaic symbols, if I said that right, a bit like gorgonions and things like that. So they're associated with protection, warding off evil, as well as being associated with evil. And they're associated with music, knowledge, and wisdom, and particularly the goddess Bridget. And so, if you know what a Bridget's cross is made out of. It's like a, I suppose it's like a cross made out of reeds or straw. For example, people make them out of straws, a straw, and let me see what else. What else would you make them out of? No, it'll come to me. I suppose. Yeah, and it's kind of like across the knotwork makes it's almost like a sort of a swastika symbol within the middle, and not in terms of kind of Nazi Germany, that kind of thing, that the Hagen cross, but the pre-Etruscan symbol, the Hindu symbol. It's a solar symbol, if you like. So if you have a look at a Bridget's cross, that's sometimes made with reeds, sometimes straw, sometimes rushes. Rushes, that was the word I was looking for. And in Greek mythology, reeds are associated with syrinx, which is quite interesting. She's a nymph. Oh, tell you what, wonder can I syrinx? Where are we? Oh, oh no, I literally haven't a clue where. And I've got books doubled up here. Nothing's organized, folks. I was looking for me Apollodorus and thought he might be. Hang on. No, that's Eratos. The wrong glasses on. No, I must have a look another time. So I get this place organized. I'm still sort of moving house a bit, so I do apologise. But it was just a wee bit to note that reeds in particular, reeds are mentioned a few times within Dune. Syrinx is a nymph that's chased by Pan, and she's kind of to disguise herself, turned into these reeds. And I suppose would sort of moan that he would clear off, but eventually cut these reeds up and made them into a set of what we call pan pipes. And the other name for a pan pipes is the syrinx. This is a story to do with Pan. If I had my copy of Apollodorus, I'd get it out quickly and read it to you. But another time, perhaps. Maybe read it, look at it again whenever it's time to bend like a reed in the wind. There we go. So, just a wee thought. I thought it was interesting. Jessica's thoughts. She nodded. He's an honourable man. He wants a sign from me, but he'll not tip fate by telling me the sign. So, it's almost a little sort of battle of wills where they're both trying to kind of help each other in a way, but without giving away too much. And she needs to figure out what this sign is. So again, I've written Jessica works the problem. Just catch Cynthia says, when Stilgar says it is said that a Bene Gesserit and her offspring, I wonder if he's referring to the report message from Kynes, in addition to it being an older prophecy from the Missionaria Protectiva. I'm going to go with I honestly don't know, Cynthia. Referring to the report message from Kynes, I think the whole idea of the prophecy must have been there for a while, and I get we're going to talk about this in a wee second. I think, in fact, we are that that the prophecy is old, but the prophecy has been manipulated by someone else, and I think that's the Kynes family. Sent the Bene Gesserit and her offspring. Hold the key to our future. He could be referring. I get what you're saying. Is he referring to the report from Kynes? You spoke of your Reverend Mother, and I've heard words of legend and prophecy. It could be that that's the case, Cynthia, but if these things are words of legend and prophecy, I'd suggest that they've been embedded with the Fremen for a wee while. I'd argue that if the Bene Gesserit were sowing myths, legends, and all sorts of stories in all different kinds of worlds for their for members of the sisterhood to use to protect themselves whenever they get there, that I'd argue that almost all of them would begin with the Bene Gesserit and her offspring, if you see what I mean. That's it's a role that any of them can fit into, especially when they have such control over their bodies, if you see what I mean, conception, etc. In addition to it being, it could well be. So you're saying, in addition to it being an older prophecy, it's quite possible that the Bene Gesserit and her offspring, who hold the key to our future. If that was the case, though, I'm not sure, Cynthia, because there was very much this sense that they'll look after the boy, but they'll probably dump Jessica, wasn't there? And if that was the case, if that was the nature of the prophecy, I don't think they'd be so keen to get rid of the woman. If you see what I mean, that's the one thing that never made enough sense to me about the previous chapter. That if that they're operating on the possibility that these two people could be the thing of legend and prophecy. But if that's the case, we'll take one of them and I'm sorry, but we don't have time to prove it. We'll kill you. Of course, that didn't happen, but I don't know. I find that not too convincing. But let's have a wee look at this. But he's an honourable man, Jessica. These are Jessica's thoughts. He wants a sign from me, but he'll not tip fate by telling me the sign. So she turned her head, stared down into the basin. We're told about the golden shadows there, the purple shadows, the vibrations of dust, moat air across the lip of the cave. And this bit in particular, I think, is really, really, really interesting. There's a shift in Jessica's mind, and it's suddenly filled with feline prudence. Okay. She knew the cant of the Missionaria Protectiva. She knew how to adapt techniques of legend, fear, and hope, and particularly to her emergency needs. But she sensed wild, this is the bit we were talking about, Cynthia, she sensed wild changes here, as though someone had been in among the Fremen and capitalized on the Missionaria's imprint. And I've written next to that, really important. And then, all right, I've written who? Who did this? And that's Pardo. My own belief is that's Pardo Kynes. You get the sense that prudence. There's a sense of prudence fills her mind. She knows the cant. Cant is a specialist language in this case. Individual groups will have cants, if you like. Small groups. It's a specialized, highly specialized language, a bit like jargon, but it's a full language, if you like. So she knows the full language, the specialized language of the Missionaria Protectiva, knows how to adapt techniques of legends, how to make legends fit, how to make people, how to use fear, how to use hope to her emergency needs. That's what it's all about. But she sensed wild change here, as though someone had been in among these Fremen and capitalized on the Missionaria's imprint. And we have that word there as well, imprint, imprinting. And I think that's basically we've sown our myths here, but things aren't quite the way they should be. if you see what I mean. Somebody's come in and it's almost like who's been sleeping in my bed, who's been eating my porridge. The bed's still there and the porridge is still there, but it's not quite right. If you sorry for the Goldilocks and the Three Bears analogy, but that's kind of what I got from this. That there's aspects to the Missionaria Protectiva that have been altered because somebody's mucked around with them, or somebody's come in and been able to use them, has capitalized on them. And whenever we get there, I suppose Pardo Kynes, whenever we get to the wee appendix, the first appendix of Dune and his little adventure, I suppose this will make more sense, I think. When Stilgar says it, Joseph Smith says, I always took that as the long line of Bene Gesserit via the Sayadina rule. I took that as they've been planting these myths for centuries. Well, yeah, Joseph, that's a good point. You get the sense that whenever we meet, is it the Reverend Mother Ramallo, isn't it? There's Matt S saying hello. Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, if I suppose the Bene Gesserit passed their knowledge down through the sharing, if you like. Have we got to that wee bit yet? The language of it. Pass within. When the Reverend Mother may yet pass within to become a Reverend Mother. That's it, sorry. That's what I was thinking of. But yeah, their memories are shared and passed down, etc., aren't they? Part of the Bene Gesserit is that oh my glasses, hang on. Limitations. They always seem surprised if and when others try the same techniques. It's not wild to play with a myth, but rather human, in my honest opinion. It's as I said. I'll be honest, it's nothing new. We've talked a wee bit about this before. So yeah, it's as you say, they're kind of, I get what you're saying. That people get surprised when somebody else has a technique for analyzing, information. And there often is a bit of I suppose, underestimation and disparagement of different schools' techniques, etc. I think it's not wild to play with a myth, but rather human, in my honest opinion. Absolutely, mucking around with myths is a fundamental of leadership and rule, is particularly within empire and all sorts of culture. The one that I like to point out is Virgil's Aeneid and Shakespeare's Macbeth and King Lear. The deliberate messings with mythology, for a very deliberate reason, a political and religious reason, But for Virgil's Aeneid is pretty much it's regardless of to be this Roman epic, its purpose is to directly to show that Augustus Caesar is a direct descendant of Aeneas and therefore a direct descendant of Zeus, Jupiter himself. That's the point. It's interesting. I've been thinking about doing a wee program, doing one of our science fiction Fridays or Saturdays, because I really wanted to sort of throw some insight into the whole Lord of the Rings thing that's you call it, the Rings of Power, and the way sort of different people are arguing about it. I think I have a bit of a different viewpoint on it, and what happens to myths and if we understand what myths are and how they change and adapt over the years, But yeah, it's a very good point. Wild change here. Someone's come in. And done what we've done. Why? In fact, we've left the tools here. Somebody's come in and built something with the tools that we've left here. And it's kind of, when I've turned up to use the tools, they're still here, but they're a bit blunt almost. That's the way I'm looking at it. And as I said, but I think it's pretty much the Kynes family, I think. But as much as it says that they've, as though someone had been in among these Fremen and capitalized on the missionaries' imprint, I think that's exactly what's happened. So I think that's really important. Stilgar clears his throat. Excuse me. And again, Jessica senses his impatience. I've written a wee question mark next to that because I thought he was actually being quite patient. But it's to do with, again, the nature of Fremen life. He knew that the day moved ahead, and as much as they're looking out enjoying this view over this basin, they want to get the seals up and, uh, secure their moisture, etc., and get ready to take it easy. He knew that the day moved ahead, that men wanted to seal the opening, a time for boldness on her part. She realized what she needed: some Dar al Hikman, some school of translation that could give her Adab, she whispered. Well, so a couple of little things here. Adab is, and we're going to be told that this is the demanding memory that comes upon you by itself. And I made a wee note that in Arabic the word can mean manners and literature. Isn't it interesting that when we have particular words that have two very separate meanings? Manners, one thing; literature is a whole other thing, but the word has the same meaning. I always think that's interesting. Now, Dar al Hikman, as presented here, is a school, basically a school of religious interpreters. We've got a wee note on this that from the 9th century AD, the Abbasid Caliph Al Mamun established an academy for translation, and he called it Dar al Hikmah, which means the house of wisdom. So that's where that comes from. Again, we're seeing Herbert, all this language, these ideas, these concepts. I wish, if that was me, for example, I would have said, I realize if I put myself in Jessica's place there, I might say, I wish I had some Rosetta Stone, for example, some way of translating this kind of thing. And again, from, I suppose, within Arabic cultures, etc., we get these little kind of analogues to this that we wouldn't use within my own language, for example. It's a bit like, I don't know if anybody has a particular way of saying wherever you live, between the devil and the deep blue sea, or between a rock and a hard place, this kind of thing. There's so many different ways of phrasing it, if you see what I mean. So many colloquial ways of saying between one pile of shit and another pile of shit that's just worse. It's one of those things. I think it's interesting. So yeah, just to fill you in on those terms then, and Adab, she whispered, the demanding memory that comes upon you by itself. So back to that. Her mind felt as though it had rolled over within her. And she recognized the sensation. Where are we? I think I'll just read this bit. She recognized the sensation with a quickening of pulse. Nothing in all the Bene Gesserit training carried such a signal of recognition. It could be only the Adab, the demanding memory that comes upon you of itself. She gave herself up to it, allowing the words to flow from her. So we have Ibn Kirtaba as far as the spot where the dust ends. So I've written just next, this is this vision, and I've also made a question here. Is she using voice? And she stretches out an arm from her robe, and Stilgar's eyes go wide. It has the desired effect. I see a Fremen with the Book of Examples, she intoned. He reads to Al-Lat, the son whom he deified and subjugated. He reads to the saddest of the trial, and this is what he reads. And I've just written, read the poem here. Here we go. Mine enemies are like green blades eaten down. They did stand in the path of the tempest. Hast thou not seen what our Lord did? He sent the pestilence among them. They did lay schemes amongst us. They are like birds scattered by the huntsman. Their schemes are like pellets of poison that every mouth rejects. Well, this doesn't go quite the way I suppose. Well, it goes in an interesting way. First of all, within what she says, she intoned, I see a Fremen with the book of examples, she intoned, he reads to Al-Lat, the son whom he deified and subjugated. So we've talked a wee bit about this before. Al-Lat is our son, Sol, S-O-L, blah, blah, blah. And this is kind of an interesting one. It says, in the terminology of the Imperium, it says mankind's original son, and by usage, any planet's primary. So it can relate to the primary son of a planet or mankind's original son, which we have to assume is Sol, as the Romans like to call it. Now, Sadis. Oh, sorry. So Al-Lat is our son Sol, but also just made a wee note. We've talked a bit about this before. Another interesting one is a pre-Islamic Arabian goddess, and is a title for the goddess Asherah, also known as Athra. For those who don't know, is the wife of the Semitic god El, El, who's pretty much your Abrahamic god as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, she's sort of cognate with a whole range of goddesses in that area, etc. The term sadis is a holy man, a holy judge, if you like. And I suppose the equivalent within English would be a saint. So sadis within the terminology of the period just says judges. The Fremen title refers to holy judges, equivalent to saints. I suppose you get this even idea. I suppose within Greek mythology, you have the judges of the underworld. I suppose Minos and Rhadamanthus. Let me see. Well, that's a hard one to spell. Rhadamanthus. Didn't do too bad, did I? Right. Okay. Rhadamanthus. There we go. Is for anybody. Let me see. Now, he's the brother of Minos, as far as I remember. Let me just see. Rhadamanthus was a wise king of Crete, son of Zeus and Europa, considered a demigod. Showing stern. His name means showing stern and inflexible judgment, says citation needed there, so I wouldn't necessarily buy that. So there we go. Yes. Rhadamanthus was, according to mythology, the son of Zeus and Europa and brother to Sarpedon and Minos, who was also a king and later judge of the dead. I'm trying to remember who the other one dealer was. Brother Rhadamanthus was raised by Asterion. I was just trying to think about the judges of the dead. There we are. Ah, that's it. Right, I was wondering who the other one was. So the judges of the dead in Greek mythology, and this is, I suppose, later, are Aeacus and Minos and Rhadamanthus. That's the three of them. It's supposed to judge the soul. So Rhadamanthus was supposed to judge the souls of Easterners, Aeacus those of Westerners, and while Minos had the casting vote. So a bit of an East-West division there. So just a holy judge, if you like, is a sadist. And I think even later on, I think possibly in the appendix 1, I think the Fremen might initially mistake. Possibly, I can't remember this, but it might be still. Pardo is possibly a sadist, but then they think he's more of a holy madman. I think. There we go. So this suppose a Fremen who supposedly, I suppose, with the book of examples, we have to assume that's what he's reading. He reads to Al-Lat the son, whom he made into a god and then imprisoned, subjugated. He reads to the sadist of the trial, and this is what he reads. So he reads to the judge of the trial. So it's about your enemies and what they do, I suppose. And hast thou not seen what our Lord did? He sent the pestilence among them. They did lay schemes against us. They are like birds scattered by the huntsman. Their schemes are like pellets of poison that every mouth rejects. Oh, I suppose you could call us the Harkonnen and the Emperor, etc. So a trembling passes through Jessica at this point, and she drops her arm. And I've just made a wee note. I think this is theatre to a degree, but the motions of the arm, etc., the robe and all of that, that's what I'm talking about. But it is interesting, I suppose, to wonder what this ADAB is, a demanding memory that comes upon you by itself. And is that a type of race memory? That's what I'm kind of curious about here. From the cave, though, in response to this, came a whispered response of many voices. So it's a bit like a litany and a response, isn't it? So when she finishes, their words have been overturned. It's the Fremen. And Jessica runs with this. The fire of God mount over thy heart. And she thought, now it goes in the proper channel. And I just put exploitative. So whatever, this is what we were saying about this. Someone's been in here and mucked around with this. It's not going quite the way she wants, but now it is. And somehow, as we were told, as I said, that through this not knowing what to do through Bene Gesserit training, it's not, she can't find the right thing in the Missionaria Protectiva because something's changed. And it comes from the demanding memory that comes upon you by itself, some sense of urgency, possibly some sort of form of other memory that pops up at the right moment within Jessica. I wonder if this is maybe possibly an early form of maybe Simuflow, something's popping up and giving her an idea, maybe. But where's it coming from is the interesting question. So the fire of God mount over thy heart, she thought. The Fremen response, the fire of God settle out. Jessica nodded. Thine enemies shall fall. Fremen, Baila Kafa. But we've note on that, we've heard it before. Amen, and to the Fremen. Nothing further need be explained is another phrase. And apparently it means the equivalent, I think, is without a how. Something that doesn't need explained, really. There's a sudden hush, and Stilgar bows to her. Sayadina, if the Shai-Hulud grant, then you may yet pass within to become a Reverend Mother. So she's got them hook, line, and sinker, basically. She's managed to get the right things to say, got the right responses, and rather than become Stilgar's wife, she's going to be the holy leader of the Fremen. She's going to be the Sayadina. And she will teach and maintain the strength of God, because that's what they do. Now, Jessica's thoughts on this. Pass within, that's an odd way of putting it, isn't it? But the rest of it fitted into the cant well enough. She felt a cynical bitterness at what she'd done. So she's manipulating these people. Absolutely manipulating them. And not in a minor way. She's going straight for power. Pardon me. Our Missionaria Protectiva seldom fails. And I've put in me brackets there, which means it does fail now and then. But seldom, not very often. A place was prepared for us in this wilderness. The prayer of the Salat has carved out a hiding place. Now I must play the part of Aliyah, the friend of God. Excuse me. So the prayer of Salat, I think that word is from Salah, which are prayers performed by Muslims. So the prayers, so that whatever it is that she's taken from this, whatever element of this hybridized Missionaria Protectiva that it's been an element that's come from Islam, by the looks of it. But now I must play the part of Aliyah, the friend of God. More theatre, more drama, more ritual. Sayadina to rogue peoples who've been so heavily imprinted with our Bene Gesserit Susei, they even call their chief priestesses Reverend Mothers. And I've just put brackets underneath it, if you wanted to paraphrase that in a funny way, it's as good a way as saying, wow, what a bunch of suckers these guys are. I mean, boy, are they suckers. Wow, have they fallen for this. They've really gone for it. They're not just imprinted, they're so heavily imprinted with the Bene Gesserit Suse that they even call their chief priestesses Reverend Mothers. So they use their Bene Gesserit terminology. That's how much that's imprinted upon. Aulia, in this case, are, I think we talked about this one again recently, is the plural of the word wali. So wali being friend, protector, ally, that kind of thing. So Alia would be friends, protectors, allies. And in Dune is the female at the left hand of God. So that's the role that she's going to play the part of friend, protector, ally, excuse me, and the left hand of God. And the left hand of God, hand is agency, it represents agency. Anywho, not a bad day's work, says Joseph. Now, let's see. So Paul is stood beside Chani. We get a shift here. And I suppose this is where we get we do get a shift altogether in the action here. And we move away from Jessica. And I suppose we're well into the chapter here, but we shift back to Paul. And I suppose a lot of the attention has been on Jessica in the last two chapters, but she's got her way out. She's found her role within society. She's being threatened with death because what use are you? You know, and now she's got a use, but not only a use, a position of power. And of course, if you yet pass within, you'll become a reverend mother. And of course, what pass within, we'll get there. Is I suppose the test that the Bene Gesserit sisterhood go through to become reverend mothers. Trying to get my thoughts on that there, which is essentially taking a poison, chemically changing it within their bodies to pass within, a euphemism. So Paul stood beside Chani in the shadows of the inner cave. I mean, he's doing a bit of observing, I suppose, but he still can taste the morsel that she fed him. So we get a wee bit of idea of this food. We're told it was bird flesh and grain. So, chicken and the sesame seeds, if you like. Bound with spice, honey, and encased in a leaf. Sounds nice. That kind of thing always gives me the sense of the Arabian Nights, though everything's very sweet in those stories. In tasting it, we're told he had realized that he'd never eaten such a concentration of spice essence. So I think that, and there had been a moment of fear, and he knew what the essence could do to him. So it's fascinating that basically Chani has passed him the equivalent of a ham sandwich from her lunchbox, if you like. Some food, a chicken sandwich, if you like. It's got a bit of grains, some honey, spice honey, and it's wrapped in a leaf. And it's got more spice than he's ever had. You know, it's the biggest dose of spice he's ever had. And this is their basic lunch, if you like, for a snack. And of course, he's aware of what the spice can do. And this is the problem for Paul, isn't it? Really, it's literally going to be fed to him all the time. You know. I suppose, it's almost like, do you have a gluten-free option? Do you have a melange-free option on this planet? No, it's a bit like the Monty Python spam thing. Do you want melange and chips, melange and ham, melange and spam? But pretty much whatever you're eating or drinking out here has got melange in it. The fear under that spice change that pushed his mind into prescient awareness. So Baila Kaifa, says Chani, again, part of the Fremen mob, if you like, in terms of how they're responding. They respond as a group. And he looks at her and sees the awe with which the Fremen have accepted his mother's words. And here we go. This is the, and I suppose we've had a little bit of this in the previous chapter, but this is where we're building up towards this. It's laying the groundwork for us. Only the man Jamis seemed to stand aloof from the ceremony, holding himself apart with arms folded across his breast. Now, of course, we know what's going to happen if we're all familiar with Dune. For those of us who aren't, and we're just getting along there, we're getting a wee bit of foreshadowing with Jamis. He is this belligerent male that attacks Paul, and Paul sorts him out pretty much in the previous chapter. He's been belligerent with Stilgar. He's been, I suppose, not following orders, questioning Stilgar quite a bit, and it's all going to come to a head. And we have wee things that we're warned about here, and partly with what Stilgar is saying out loud. I think as much as Jessica admires the fact that he's speaking not just to her but to the rest of the tribe, but I think a fair amount of this is aimed at Jamis. Even now, that there are those among us, those among my young men who have reached the age of wild spirits. So I think we'll find out that Jamis, I think, is about 19, but he is a teenager. And there's the one guy. Jessica also in the previous chapter has kind of marked him out as something's not the voice of, there's murder in his voice, this kind of thing. Matt S says, what use are you, Fremen? What use are you, Matt S? I am the friend, ally, and protector of this hamster. Fremen, you are accepted. Excellent. Joseph Smith, got to get ready to go to work. Much love. Excellent, Joseph. Have a good day at work, and thank you very much for joining us. Look after yourself. Of this hamster. I like that. Attack of the Were hamster. This got me thinking on, who's that? It's a bit of a, it's just a rabbit, isn't it, from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but I don't know if you remember, Matt, is it Throp? Was it Throp? Thrud the Barbarian? Thrud the Barbarian, I think, used to be in one of his buddies is a were hamster. I always like that. I'm the friend, ally, and protector of this hamster. Yeah. So Jamis is a bit just setting himself aside. I suppose he's sticking out like a sore thumb. And it's not going to go well for him, I suppose. So Chani then says the words, Du Yaka Hin Manj, Du Punra Hin Manj. So there might be Mangay at the end there, I don't know. I have 2 eyes, I have 2 feet. And she stared at Paul with a look of wonder. So Paul took a deep breath, trying to still the tempest within him. His mother's words had locked onto the working of the spice essence. He'd felt her voice rise and fall within him, like shadows of an open fire. That's the wee bit where I was wondering, and I'd asked this earlier, did she use the voice? And it's quite possible, and I suppose Herbert's not going to tell us here, but whenever she's giving this this speech that ends up with all the sort of Fremen sort of intoning or repeat, giving their I suppose responses to her litany, if you like, her little story. Yeah, that's. I think I mean, just has she used the voice? It says here he felt her voice rise and fall within him. That could be just the normal rise and fall of the tone, if you like. of the levels of her voice. But there's a wee bit of a suggestion, I think, that the Banshee should be using the voice here, I think. But it's like shadows of an open fire. I like that. Through it all, he sensed the edge of cynicism in her. He knew her so well. But nothing could stop this thing that had begun with a morsel of food. Its terrible purpose. With a big exclamation mark in his back. So Paul sensed it. Here we go. What is his terrible purpose? The race consciousness that he could not escape. He had sharpened clarity, an inflow of data, cold precision, the cold precision of his awareness. So he sinks to the floor with his back against the rock, giving himself up to it. It's a bit of a trip here. And this, I suppose, if we're comparing Paul to his mother in this chapter, she also has, this is the thing he's giving himself up to. And she does the same with the Adab. She gave herself up to it, allowing the words to flow from her. So these things sort of come upon both of them in this situation. I think it's a bit dangerous, actually. An awareness flowed into it, we're told, timeless stratum where he could view time, sensing all the available paths, the winds of the future, the winds of the past, the one-eyed vision of the future, all combined in a trinocular vision that permitted him to see time become space. And we're told there was danger. What is this danger? The danger of overrunning himself. And he had to hold on to his awareness of the present, sensing the blurred deflection of experience, the flowing moment, the continual solidification of that which is into the perpetual was. In grasping the present, he felt for the first time, I think this is quite an interesting phrase, he felt for the first time the massive steadiness of time's movement everywhere, complicated by shifting currents, waves, surges, and counter surges, like surf against rocky cliffs. It gave him a new understanding of his prescience, and he saw the source of blind time, the source of error in it, with an immediate sensation of fear. So, and I suppose the similarity with both him and Jessica in this chapter, they've both had to give themselves up to something that's happened in an internal way, if that makes sense. And yes, I suppose that they both had to give themselves up, and it has provided. Well, I suppose not. They both also have a change of understanding within the chapter, shall we say. Jessica realizes that her understanding of Stilgar is incorrect, that she's underestimated and adjusts herself and her behavior accordingly. Paul is the same here. He's misunderstood this. He's allowed himself to flow over him, but then I've misunderstood it in the sense that it's given him a new understanding of his presence. So again, another kind of rebirth for both characters. He saw the source of blind time. This is his new understanding. This is what the source of error in it, with an immediate sensation of fear. So we're told that the prescience, this is his realization, was an illumination that incorporated the limits of what it revealed. So at once a source of accuracy and meaningful error, a kind of Heisenberg indeterminacy intervened. The expenditure of energy that revealed what he saw changed what he saw. It's a fair amount to take in. A little bit of name dropping there. We've got Heisenberg. Heisenberg and his uncertainty principles. Werner Heisenberg. Goodness, that's essentially. In fact, tell you what, give me a wee second, folks. I need to run to the loo very quickly, and I'll be right back, and then I'll try and explain that. We're very nearly. Oh no, I'll tell you what. I'll hang on. We're nearly at the end of the chapter, aren't we? No, I won't. I'll run to the loo quickly. I'll be right back. 1 wee second, folks. Excuse me. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. I've been joined by Holly. She's over on the big sofa. You all right, big lad? I have all the dogs, sort of wife's keeping them out for tonight. Now, where were we? Let me just catch up on your comments, actually. We're very nearly at the end. So Johnny says, I have 2 eyes, I have 2 feet. Paul slides to the fore, so he has no feet. Yeah. Paul has trinocular vision, so he has 3 eyes. Fundamental difference between Paul and the Fremen, perhaps. Trinocular, I thought, is an interesting way of putting it. Pardon me. I was trying to figure out what Chani means by I have 2 eyes, I have 2 feet. And I was wondering, really, was it in terms... I think it is actually, maybe possibly in terms of what Jessica is saying, the ceremony there. But she stares at Paul with a look of wonder. It's an interesting phrase. Don't know what you guys think. But yeah, swept off his feet by this vision. Fundamental difference between Paul and the Fremen, perhaps. I will always have to remember, of course, that Paul is not a Fremen. That's not too important, really, I think, until we get to his son, the God Emperor, but then it is important. Let me see. Where were we? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I've gone back a page. Heisenberg, that's where we're at, wasn't it? Terrible purpose. There we go. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Let's see where we were at. Where did I write that down? Number 53. I should use my notes, shouldn't I? There we go. So just to recap, the prescience he realized was an illumination that incorporated the limits of what it revealed. At once a source of accuracy and meaningful error. A kind of Heisenberg indeterminacy intervened. The expenditure of energy that revealed what he saw changed what he saw. I think we mentioned this before. I think there was a bit of a clue to this, that I suppose, I think we get the more you take to sort of, the more melange, for example, that you take to get a particular vision, the more it'll affect that vision. So Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, I'd paraphrase this. Basically, the more you know about a particle's position, that is, I suppose, how precise it is, how precise its position is, then the less precision you'll know about its. Oh God, how do I put this right? The more you know about a particle's position, that is how precise its position is, then the less you'll know about how precise its momentum can be calculated based on its initial conditions, and vice versa, I suppose, is one way of putting it. And don't ask me to explain. Wikipedia will go there, but that's essentially the way I would understand it roughly. I just put a simple thing down there. So the other thing I've put down here, illumination that incorporated the limits of what it revealed, at once a source of accuracy and meaningful error. Quantum mechanics, a kind of Heisenberg indeterminacy, intervened. So I've also thought that it's reminded me on Plato's the allegory of the cave in Plato's Republic. Sorry, and if you have a wee look at that I don't know why, but it sort of just pinged something with me. What he saw, maybe it's just because of the cave, I don't know. What he saw was a time nexus within the cave, a boiling of possibilities focused here, wherein the most minute action, the wink of an eye, a careless word, a misplaced grain of sand, moved a gigantic lever across the known universe. The slightest thing, the merest mote of sand will have a tremendous impact upon the universe. Says moved a gigantic lever across the known universe. I've put that reminds me of Archimedes, obviously, but also with Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. That always reminds me of his magic wishing staff, things like this. He saw violence with the outcome subject to so many variables that his slightest movement created vast shiftings in the pattern. Now, I think this is Janus coming up. He saw violence with the outcome subject to so many variables that his slightest movement created vast shiftings in their pattern. Violence is coming, I think. The vision made him want to freeze into immobility. But this too was action without its action with its consequences. So of course the old saying, even if you do nothing, you're still doing something, that kind of thing. Inaction is an action in itself. And so this chapter ends with this passage here. The countless consequences. So many different possibilities. Lines found out from this cave. And along most of these consequence lines, he saw his own dead body with blood flowing from a gaping knife wound. There we go, and we've hit the end of the chapter. Chapter 33. This is going to continue. And we're going to go straight to this, really. We're going to see, I suppose, if you think about the consequences, the results of what's happened in Tuano Basin, is that there's an argument, I suppose. We'll talk about it whenever we get past the death of Janus, I suppose. But Janus has been provocative. He's been poking at Stilgar. There's all sorts of things going on. He attacks Paul, and Paul bests him with a jab that leaves him incapacitated and not in a particularly good way. And he finds it hard to accept that he's been bested by this 15-year-old boy. And this ill will, I suppose, this belligerence, this hatred is building, and getting into his brain, basically. The results of which we'll see in the next chapter, folks. So there you go. That's us through chapter 32. There's so much here in terms of the Fremen, I think. But it focuses really, in terms of what we're learning about, we get a little bit of their food and stuff, for example. But it's leadership and how they operate as a people. they operate for the benefit of the whole troop, if you like, for the tribe, and all things are done for the benefit, for the preservation, for the survival, if you like, of the tribe. And we see we get some ideas of Fremen sexual practices. We get a sense of their hierarchy, how they treat women, separation of men and women in their society, but and also how they deal with, I suppose, young men who are having hormonal issues. How to deal with aggression in young men. It's not going to work, really, is it? There's always the hint of violence as a part of a necessity, if you like. And we're getting a range of, I suppose, linguistic cues to their particular type of religion. And I think, of course, the Fremen's religion is very much a melange of religions. But especially with a lot of the language here, we've got a fair amount of Arabic, Islamic, and Persian terms here in the chapter. And again, I think it's amazing doing a wee book club like this in the era of the internet, if you like, that we can, find these little things out so easily and readily, that it really just adds a whole level of color, I suppose, to the world of Arrakis. That it really brings it to life, and that there is history and meaning and weight, in the words and stories and myths of the Fremen and of their origins as a people, whoever they have been, the children of Nazir, and all these different people that they have been over the years, I suppose. So this chapter ends with a vision of Paul's own dead body, blood flowing from a gaping knife wound. He sees his own death. Not a good thing. But it's a possibility. And I'm sure there must be other possibilities, So there we are, folks. I think we've got a few of you still with us. But I'm glad to get through that one today. It's a good chat, and I'm really looking forward to the next chapter, where we get this combat between Paul and Jamison and the testing of the prophecy, etc. Cynthia saying thanks, Doug. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm a bit bunged up tonight, but we're still trying to get moved and settled and stuff, so we're a wee bit. And that got the hideous curtains down from behind. Have to get something up in their place. But yeah, we're getting settled. We're getting there, folks. But it's nice to have this to do regularly again once a week. And we're making pretty good progress through June. If anybody's got a pull on my book, will it survive or not? Put me down for £10 that it won't. But I reckon this book will fall apart by the time I get to the end of it, which is a bit sad. But yeah, we're not too far off book 3 of June as well. We have a few chapters to go, and then we'll hit book 3 and we'll head towards the climax, I suppose. Where are we? Book 3. 318. 389. Yeah, reasonable amount, But and I think, I don't know, I like these 3 chapters together. I think work really well. That there's a change in pacing, a change in action, and a change in, I suppose, the narrative, and the fact that it's become slightly linear for a while, which it hasn't been for a while. But quite impressive with Jessica just going about her business, sorting out these Fremen people and preparing them really for what, how she's going to manipulate them. And even she feels a wee bit of a pang of, I really should, it's a wee bit of, this is a bit naughty, isn't it? But yeah, we're doing it anyway. Survival is key, I think. But yeah, it's a really interesting chapter, and in the previous chapter, setups for this confrontation that we're going to have in the next chapter, which we'll be back with on Thursday, hopefully at 10 p.m. GMT +1. It's of course a very famous one for Dune fans. How it's been handled in the film, I thought it was done quite well in the mini series, and of course it was never part of. I don't think David Lynch's Dune. It might have been filmed actually, wasn't it? But it wasn't in the end cut. But there we go. So listen, I'll call it. That'll do this for today, folks. Thank you very much for joining us as usual. There's Bojack saying, "Take care, all. Take care, Bojack. Same to yourselves, folks. Look after yourselves, no matter where you are. I hope life's treating you kind." And I'm going to say good night and get some honey down my throat. Excuse me, and spare it for the next episode. So in the meantime, folks, look after yourselves. Take care of yourselves, no matter where you are at. I'll say good night and all the very best to you. Take care. Bye bye. All the best.